Hello everyone and welcome to the ninth episode of Learning Java. Today we'll be learning about the while loop. So last episode I explained what a for loop is, and while loop is fairly similar. It's the same kind of loop. The only difference is the way we write the syntax and the algorithm. So first we'll recap about what the for loop is and then we'll come to the while loop. That will be easy to understand. So last class we saw that in a for loop you write for and then bracket open, and in the first space you declare variable. So in the first place you declare variable, then you put a semicolon, and in the second space you write your boolean expression or the variable. Then and in the last one you put your increment slash increment or decrement, whatever you want to do. So this is what a for loop looks like, and everything will be in these curly brackets. So first you declare the variable in the first space, then it's boolean expression, and then it's increment decrement operator, whatever you want. And all these three are optional, and you can use logical operators in the boolean expression. You can declare multiple variables over here, and you can have multiple increment decrement operators with the help of the punctuator comma. So what is the while loop? The while loop is fairly similar. It functions almost in the same way as a for loop. So in a while loop, the syntax is like this. You write while, open close brackets, and in these parentheses will be your entire code. So what comes in these brackets? Well, in these brackets, the only thing that comes is the Boolean expression, nothing else. No declaration of variables and no increment decrement values. So the only difference between a for loop and a while loop is that in the for loop, you can have all three. You can declare, or you can have a Boolean expression, and you can have a particular operation like increment decrement. But in a while loop, you can only have a Boolean expression. Another thing to note is that in a for loop, all these three are compulsory. If you all these three are optional, I mean, so it's optional to have all these three. You can have none. But in a while loop, there's only one, which is Boolean expression, and it's compulsory to have a Boolean expression. So hope you all understood the syntax. So now we are going to look at the while loop in practice and how the while loop works. So let's say we need to print all the numbers from 0 to 10. And how do we do that? Well, while so we obviously need a variable which whose value is going to be incremented from 0 to 10, and it's going to print that particular variable. So if we were using a for loop, the code would have been something like for int I is equal to 0, I should be less than equal to 10, and I plus plus. Our code would have been something like that. But in case of while loop, we can only have a Boolean expression in the brackets. So how is the code going to be like? So first we need to declare a variable, which we can't do in the while loop itself. We have to do it outside. So we do it outside, int I is equal to 0. And in the while loop, we can only have the Boolean expression. So I should be less than equal to 10, because you have to print numbers from 0 to 10. So that hence the values. And this is where our code is going to be. So we are going to print system dot out dot println I. And now we have to increase the value of I by 1 after we print the value of I. So in case of for loop, we would have had something like this over here, separated with the semicolon, but in a while loop, we cannot. So you have to put it right here. I is equal to I plus 1. So we can't put it in the brackets. So we have to put it right here after the print statement or whatever operation you want to perform. So this is how a general while loop looks like. Let's execute the code and void main, and you can see the code works perfectly. So I'll give you a quick dry run for this code now. So first, the int I is equal to 0 is going to be declared. Then it's going to go to the while loop, and it's going to check if I is less than equal to 10. So is 0 less than equal to 10, which it is. So then it's going to print I, so it's going to print 0. And then it's going to make the value I is equal to I plus 1, which is 0 plus 1. It's going to make it 1. Now again, it's going to go to the while statement, and it's going to check if 1 is less than equal to 10. Then if that's correct, then system.out.println in I, and then it's going to increment the value. So like this, the entire code keeps on going on. In the same way, you can do this for various of the codes, and there are multiple codes that you can go and practice for yourself to get a better understanding of what the while loop is. So there's actually nothing much to cover in the while loop. So I'll be covering a few things regarding the for loop, which I forgot to mention in the last class. So let's say we have this thing int I is equal to 0, I should be less than equal to 10, I plus plus. Now, let's say there's a very, like, not confusing actually, there's a misconception which many people have, is that you can have only one, so you can declare only one variable here, you can have only one Boolean expression here, and you can increment only one value over here. That's wrong. You can have as many as you want. So to have multiple of declarations and expressions and operations, you can just use the punctuator comma. So int I is equal to 0, and let's say we want another variable. Z equals 0, comma, a equals 10, comma, x equals 12. So like this, you can have multiple variables of the same data type. But let's say in the declaration space, you want variables of two data types. Let's say you want int and double, or int and char, or something, or char and double. So can we do that? Let's see. So if I put a comma, double equals, sorry, double t equals 10.0. This doesn't work. So in a for loop, that's kind of like a disadvantage. You can declare variables of the same data type only. So that's a limitation which you have. Now, how do we add more than one Boolean expression? This is very easy. You can just use logical operators like and or. So and, let's say a should be greater than is equal to 9. So you can have something like this. You can have multiple ors and whatever you want. It's up to you. And to have more than one operation, you can again use the comma, and you can have a is equal to a plus 5, 7, or then z plus plus, or z minus minus, whatever you want. So like this, you can have multiple declarations or Boolean expressions or operations in your for loop. One more thing which I wanted to point out in the for loop is that all the variables which are declared in the for loop are local variables. I'll be covering the various different types of variables like class variable, local variable, etc. in later sessions. But for now, a local variable is basically a variable which is inside a particular loop. So in this case, this variable is declared inside that loop. If this variable was, let's say, declared over here, then it wouldn't have been a local variable. So a local variable is a variable that is declared inside a loop. So these local variables cannot be accessed outside the loop. So let's say I do system.out.println and I do print I. And when I compile the thing, it's giving me an error, undeclared variable I, as you can see. So this basically means that all the variables that are declared inside the for loop can only be accessed, used, and operated inside the for loop. So we cannot use them outside the for loop. So that's a point to note. Let's say you're writing some code, and and you want to access the variable inside the for loop as well as outside the for loop. So you have to declare them outside the for loop. Another thing which I wanted to point out is that, let's say you have another for loop. Can you use the same variable I? Because as I just said, these variables are only declared for inside a loop. So can I use the same variable again in another loop? The answer is yes. So let's say you have int I is equal to 0 over here. You can declare the same variable again, int I is equal to 1, and then whatever Boolean expression and all you have. Let's say you just put 2 colons, that's it. So you can have something like this. Just a second. Something like this also. This will work. So you can use local variables as many times as you want. That's a good thing about these local variables, is that instead of having different variables for each for loop, you can use the same variable again and again. So that's it for today, everyone. Thanks for watching. And if you have any queries, doubts, or suggestions, you can mail me. My email will be in the description down below. And thanks again for watching.